Beginning in 2006, Grant Morrison embarked on an epic and ambitious Batman story that would take years across several different comic book titles to complete. Morrison aimed to deconstruct the identity of the Dark Knight and explore precisely what it is that makes Bruce Wayne click. What does he have that other heroes don't? Why does this man of all people get to be the Batman? Morrison's first issue of Batman was number 655. It opens with a fairly stereotypical scene of the Joker doing something diabolical, obviously. But it's that famous issue where he has trapped this Batman and has him beaten down, and at the same time he has these bunch of children kidnapped, and he's screaming, "I just killed the Batman in front of a bunch of school childrens! Go get me Santa Claus!" And that is freaking hysterical. But then something out of a complete left field for me happens. This supposed Batman shoots the Joker point blank in the face with a pistol. Yep, you're hearing right. But you don't need to worry. We soon learn that this was not the Dark Knight himself, whom we all know has famously sworn to never use a weapon. Instead, our gunman was a cop in a Batman costume, and the first of three ghosts that he encounters over the course of the series. As it turns out, these ghosts are three Gotham policemen who volunteer to undergo extreme psychological conditioning to replace the Batman should the need ever arise. Each of the three replacement Batman amplifies the quality of our own Dark Knight, and none of them can quite live up to his standard. The first man uses a gun to stop the Joker, an act which only succeeds in making him angry and possibly crazier, as we see in The Clown at Midnight. The second man is the ultimate assertion of Batman as an alpha male, and bears a striking resemblance to Bane. Finally, we meet the third man, whose wife and children were brutally sacrificed by satanic cultists. According to Dr. Simon Hurd, the psychologist in charge of these experiments, he said, "We've studied the footage, modeled his body language and mannerisms, and come to a very simple conclusion: trauma. Shattering trauma is a driving force behind the enigma of Batman. While the third man comes closest to overcoming our hero, it's still not enough to truly replace the Batman, because the Batman didn't lose his wife and children as a grown man. He lost his parents and his innocence when he was still a child." Originally introduced in 1955 in Detective Comics number 215, the International Club of Heroes consists of several stereotypically ethnic Batman ripoffs. When Grant Morrison reintroduces them in the Black Glove storyline, he establishes each of them as their own unique and fleshed out personalities, complete with their own Joker-type nemesis. Of course, none of their enemies are quite as insane as the Joker, and perhaps because of that, none of them are quite as effective as the Batman himself. England's Knight is a legacy hero. The Musketeer went temporarily insane and went to prison. The Legionary of Rome has become fat and has an eating disorder. The Native American Man of Bats and his sidekick, Raven Red, are actually father and son. The Ranger from Australia has recently attempted to recreate himself as Dark Ranger. And though perhaps the most effective of the group is the Argentina's El Gaucho, he's still a hothead. While they have certainly established themselves as heroes within their own rights, each of the Batmen of all nations is still missing that certain something that makes the Batman what he is. As Man of Bats says, when you're a kid, all adults can seem like superheroes, but they're just people. Only a little kid would ever think we're heroes. This emphasis on childhood further implies the major difference between Bruce Wayne and the Batman of all nations: childhood trauma. Unlike these international heroes, Batman was created when he was still a child, a detail which helps him to perpetuate his own mythology as a superhero in a way that none of the other heroes can quite replicate. As part of his mission statement coming onto the Batman franchise, Morrison attempted to find a way to reconcile every story since 1939 into a single continuity, in a digestive sense kind of way. Every Batman story that's ever been written actually happened to a single person in the course of his lifetime. Of course, this ambitious goal requires Morrison to make even the most ridiculous Batman stories somehow relevant. The Batman of Surenar originally appeared in Batman number 113 as Tlano, an alien from the planet X who abducts the Batman of Earth in order to help save his planet. He wears a brightly colored version of the traditional Batman costume, with a red bodysuit, yellow sleeves, and a purple cape and cowl. It's funny, to say the least. Later during the Batman RIP storyline, the evil Simon Hurd finds a way to attack Batman's mind using the post-hypnotic suggestion phrase, Surenar, hidden in background graffiti throughout the earlier chapters of the story. Unfortunately for him, it backfires and the Batman of Surenar kicks in. Now revealed as what is essentially a backup personality, an emergency identity that Bruce Wayne created inside his mind should it ever, come under attack. The Batman of Surenar is described as Batman minus Bruce Wayne, essentially the pure identity of the Batman. Reverting him to a primal, almost childlike state, we learn at the end of Batman RIP that the phrase Surenar is derived from the last words that Bruce's father spoke to him in the alleyway outside of the theater before the mugging that took his life. He said, "I'm not so sure Gotham City would welcome a masked man taking the law into his own hands, Bruce. The sad thing is, they would probably throw someone like Zorro in Arkham." Zorro in Arkham. Sur in R. When the Batman of Surenar emerges, he has company. Batmite, a cartoon-like version of the Batman who helps guide the primal Batman of Surenar towards his destination. "I'm the last fading echo of the voice of reason, Batman," he explains. Looking at Batmite in terms of his relationship to the Batman of Surenar, it becomes clear that one explanation of what he is that he might be an hallucination of Bruce's childhood, an imaginary friend that exists within Bruce's self-conscious, a childish conscience to help guide him while, all else fails. I've read how traumatized children sometimes develop covert personalities to protect themselves from painful, repressed memories. That's what Bruce explains in a flashback, and it seems this might be the key to Batman's unique abilities as a hero, but I like how ambiguous enough it is that when Bruce, or may I say, the Batman of Surenar, asks him if he really is a powerful being from the fifth dimension, or is he just a creation of his imagination, Batmite replies, "Bruce, you are the detective. Imagination is the fifth dimension," and that is brilliant if you ask me. Later in the run, Dick Grayson also takes on the mantle of the Batman with Damian as his Robin. While Dick has established himself as an efficient crime fighter in his own right, he understands that the symbol of the Bat is bigger than just Bruce and it cannot be allowed to die. Dick does an excellent job temporarily filling Bruce's role as Batman. And it's kind of funny how the police and the people just kind of feel that there's something off with Batman. They are saying things like, "Didn't he used to be taller?" or "Batman sounded different, right?" Stuff like that. And even Jim Gordon says something like, "Different maybe, but familiar." Batman's greatest enemy, besides the Joker, is evil. That maybe makes me sound kinda stupidly obvious, but hear me out. Grant Morrison took this idea and made it literal during his run on Batman, putting the Dark Knight against Darkseid, the new god embodiment of evil, and Dr. Simon Hurt, who is for all intents and purposes the devil himself in the form of a disinherited member of the Wayne family, but that's for another kind of discussion. Something interesting he says is that what we are about to do will be a work of art, nothing less than the complete and utter ruination of a noble human spirit. He announces this at the beginning of a Batman R.I.P. Although by this point we are all, aware that he's been pulling the strings for quite some time. There's been a long-standing literary tradition of the devil trying to corrupt or destroy noble souls, and a soul as good as Batman's would certainly be considered as the grand prize. And how does Hurt plan on destroying the goodness of Batman? The first step is to undo the tragedy of his origins. To accomplish this, Hurt appears in public and claims to be Bruce's father, Thomas Wayne, whose death was faked, and then proceeds to destroy the Waynes' good reputation in Gotham City by spreading rumors and false evidence of drug addiction, scandals, and an illicit affair between Martha and the good butler Alfred. In the case that this was all true, that Thomas Wayne was still alive, and that the Waynes themselves were not the upstanding philanthropic citizens they were believed to be, it would call into question the entire purpose of Batman's existence, thus destroying the goodness of his soul. During his time in Darkseid's captivity, Batman is forced to endure physical and psychological experimentation at the hands of some evil cronies, in their attempt to create an army of evil Bat-clones, using a psychic creature called the Lump. They play and replay through the memories of Batman's life, hoping to figure out what makes him click, what makes him Batman. So they keep creating these situations where, for example, there's one where a bat never flew into his window, so he had no inspiration for being a Batman, but he became a vigilante anyway. And they created also another situation where his parents were never killed, so he never had to become Batman or a vigilante for any reason at all. But at the end, the Lump realizes that their army of evil Batclones will never work because the raw emotional energy is not enough. They need the actual experiences, the trauma, all of which would of course prevent them from being evil. What kind of man can turn even his life memories into a weapon, they regret. But as Bruce says as he finally breaks free, you can have the memories and the trauma if you can handle it, and that is awesome. At the beginning of the Batman R.I.P. storyline, Bruce allows his girlfriend, Jezebel Jed, into his world as Batman, and she makes a profound observation when he first brings her into the Batcave. It was so brave of you, Bruce, so ingenious to make yourself into the great Dark Knight who wasn't there for you when you needed him. But all this is a disturbed little boy's response to his parents' death. Despite the fact that we later learn of Jezebel's, dark intentions, the fact that Bruce is only ever interested in evil, dangerous women is a topic for another time. This idea has been central to Morrison's exploration of the Batman mythos, as demonstrated by the multitudes of analog replacement and wannabe Batman. While Batman is hardly the only superhero with a defining tragedy in his life, Bruce Wayne's circumstances were incredibly unique, and this is what has made Bruce in particular into such a strong crime fighter and character. Even without that iconic cape and cowl, there's more to him than a freak accident or being the last son of a dying alien race. He's just such a unique character. He needs to be explored in every possible way, and that's what Grant Morrison did in his run, and he is just a brilliant writer for doing that. Not that anyone needed another reason to respect, fear, and adore the Batman, but no one's ever explored his distinct greatness in quite the same way. So this is my explanation for Grant Morrison's Batman. Sorry so long, but it had to be done. So thanks for watching and see you next time.